Hello, welcome to the Raina Rouse Show. So, if you can see, there's something different that's going on today. I'm doing something a little different. I have thought it through, and I thought that maybe it might be fun to take a break from the main piece that I've been drawing throughout these episodes and maybe shift it around a bit. In addition to this piece that I'm doing, I've got another piece that I'm working on, and I figured, why not just add another? But instead of just drawing through sketch, I thought that it actually would be pretty cool to show some of my digital work, but start off with a new piece. But even to make it a little bit easier, instead of going through the drawing boards, I know a lot of my last piece, or the main piece we're drawing with in the first 3 episodes, have been a sketch piece that's kind of just stream of consciousness sketch, just abstract doodles, which has been fun. I've been enjoying. I thought it might be interesting to change the rhythm a bit and add in some finished work that I can just trace. And I think that the most important thing about that is that this episode's topic that I'd like to discuss, I think, would be benefited greatly from me actually just going into it without having to think about what I'm drawing, and kind of just allow myself to talk and get a lot of my thoughts out without having to feel like I'm multitasking. I'm still multitasking, but I think you'll quickly see where there's a I hope that I can tell that there's a difference between where I am not focusing entirely on just I guess just being stretched too much. That's just another way to put it. So I've got a treat, something cool that I've been recommended to draw online and take onto my digital craft, and it is this piece I drew sometime last year. Here it is. Awesome piece. Actually, since I have the moment, let me see if the lighting will work with me. I apologize for that brightness. Awesome piece that I worked on sometime last year. Really cool, abstract, a lot of experimenting, a lot of fun, just kind of putting in some ideas. And so this is kind of what my ideas, where they can get to when I really take the time to push out a lot of my when I really structure my pieces. The piece that I'm working on right now with the doodling, or just I should just say my doodling, really helps me expand that imaginative side to allow stuff like this to come out, especially some of the more this is pretty structured, but there's still a lot of abstract going on. But what I think too is that there's a lot that there's even another step above that, where I can even push it into another area of, so it'd be like the doodling would be one, the second would be this type of piece where it's like it's still doodling but there is some structure, and then the final type of pieces where I really put to the limits the means of structuring a piece, situating it, and then even like spending sometimes a whole month on a piece just trying to work out all of the pieces. So I figured it'd be really fun to record myself basically tracing. A lot of what we're going to be doing is tracing with this piece. So let me pop up my screen. You're going to be seeing some of my recording stuff going on right there. This is the piece. I have brought it in. I am still not ready yet. If you can see on this bottom area, there's some white shining through. And the reason for that is because we have all of our layers over here. Let's see if I can move the laptop so you can get an idea of my layers. I wish I could have zoomed in for this. You can't really see it. But I have all my layers here. Sorry if it's blurry. And you can see me right here. Hello. Okay, so I've got the main layer of the actual taken picture piece. If you can see it over here on the left, it'll move it right there. It'll disappear when I take away that layer. I've got my backgrounds too, which includes that little white speck. So if I take that away, it'll turn into, like, I don't know if you can see it. It's like a little grid instead of a white. But anyway, what I thought it'd be cool to I figured I'd set it up, change the image's resolution, but before I go into it, I thought it'd be a really cool idea to show some of the editing tools that I'm working with and just how I'm going to situate this piece. As you can see, I don't know if you can tell, and my apologies, it'll probably get cleared up. You can't even see it really in the recording now I look at the camera. I just have a grid on, that's just kind of to help me with placement. I wanted to kind of give it some type of centering. So, I've never really drawn like this, so my apologies, and my hand goes through the camera. We're going to try this and see if if it works. This is just something new, this drawing with my computer, like so. I'm just drawing, I'm just recording right onto the actual screen of my tablet, so there is a plan to build a PC in time, so hopefully I can have a little bit more resolution, as well as the actual stream of the actual lap or the computer's you know, output, I guess that's the word. Anyway, let's focus in on fixing this piece a bit. So we're going to increase the brightness up a little bit, kind of want to bring out that white, increase a little bit of the contrast, just so that we're working with a little bit more fidelity when it comes to a lot of these other pieces, and the separation between the dark and the light. A lot of this detail, unfortunately, when I draw online, gets lost, but I often kind of mix it up with some other type of textures. But no matter what, it's not the same as drawing with a ballpoint, so we're gonna have to work with it. So brightness and contrast is good. I don't push it too much because I don't want it to completely depend on the brightness and the contrast. What I really want to depend upon is what's called levels. And it basically, if you've ever done editing on your phone, it's kind of breaking it down to whites and blacks. So the white, I'm going to carry that all the way over here. And if you can tell, all the whites are just going to pop now. They're going to come out a lot more. And since a little bit of this is pencil drawing, I can control right here how much of the black and the grays that are going to come out. So I'm going to experiment, see which is better. I'm not liking this side, but just going to keep pushing it to see. I might have to carry it about right there. That might actually prefer to what I'd like. Maybe a little back. Maybe move the white a little more. I don't like that the white's being lost by the fact that I'm moving this forward. No, I'll keep this gray a little over here. If you can tell, I'm going to use the preview button to see the difference. Just basic lighting, just trying to get the whites out a little more and trying to hide the black, or not the blacks, but this paper kind of texture back here. So fun fact as I'm doing this, as you can tell, there's a little bit of writing right there. I usually add a bit that, especially of whatever I'm listening to when I'm drawing this. And in truth, I'm gonna forget the name. No, it's an album called, actually I might have it nearby. No, it might be my car. It's called Graham Central Station. Let me see if I can pull it up actually. So, fun fact, we're working with a color palette today. If you are a digital artist, if you don't know about Color Hunt, I'd recommend it. It's a great place where I find all my palettes. This is the palette we're working with today. If you go onto their palettes, they can show you, let me go back on the main page. They have a ton of different palettes to work from. It's a really awesome tool to get your colors in. I don't want to take any credit of the fact that I get my colors from Color Palette and use that as a model. So, let's see. Graham Central Station. There we go, Graham Central Station. It's a pretty dope, what would be the word? I was gonna say slow-mo, but that's not it. Not even R&B. I don't remember the word of that genre. Oh my goodness, and it's like one of my family's favorites. Motown. It's great. It's got an awesome bassist. Graham Central Station's pretty badass. It's pretty great. And it's one of their songs called it's called Tell Me What It Is. Fun little beat. I really dig the whole essence of that statement when it comes to my pieces. It's pretty cool. Okay, so now we're on this layer. Let's bring this a little close in so you can see. I'm gonna go to my tools, and basically what I'm gonna do is change the what's the word? There's no word for this. It just says normal up here, but there's another word for it. It's in Photoshop. It tells you. It's basically like the properties of the layer. So I don't know if you can see the difference between this. It should pop out more. Unfortunately, it's not. Maybe if I bring it down a little. Nope. So that kind of works, actually. This is kind of what I was aiming toward, but multiply usually cuts down more of the black and whites. Maybe it's different. No, I'll change the colors. That completely erases it. You know what it might be, actually, because I still have a lot of these grays here. Because if I probably draw underneath it, and this is on multiply, it'll probably show if I draw underneath. Let me see. Yeah, as you can see. Normally, if this was on normal, you wouldn't be able to see this. So here you go. It disappears. Basically what it does, multiply, is it'll change... I'm probably explaining to you some... What's the word? There's a word for it. I'm always skipping on words. When you go... Anyway. So, if I put multiply, you'll be able to see these darker lines. So that's kind of what the hope was for, but I was hoping it would erase some of this darker gray in the back. It kind of comes out as white on the camera, but it'll work with what I'm doing, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the opacity, basically the visibility of this. Let me get rid of this black line. Get rid of the visibility a little on this piece. Maybe the reason why it's not getting rid of it entirely with the first setting of it is probably because the grays are still in there. I didn't go too far with the levels. Maybe try that a little bit. Go to levels again, go to levels again. Let's see. No, that gray wants to still push. That'd be kind of what I'm aiming for, but don't really want to lose all the blacks in there. But that's better, so we'll keep that. Keep it on multiply, and lower it just a little. So, it's better than nothing. So we're gonna lock our layer, this main design layer. I'm gonna add it into the background options. Oop. It's gonna go above the white. I'll lock it. I'm gonna lock this entire layer because I don't want to move any backgrounds. And we are good to go. So, question becomes, am I starting to draw with any of the actual colors? We have our color set right here. These are our colors. I think I might just start with black and maybe fill in different colors. I think any outline that would be any different color probably just wouldn't work out down the line. So, where to begin? I think I should start with the outline of the skull. Let's just do that. And we begin. I've got a variety of different tools. I do have, just for if anyone uses, what's the word? Clip Studio. It might be a better idea to bring down the opacity of this one even further. Let me draw a little bit of black. Maybe right next to it, so we can tell the difference. I wonder if that's catching in the video I'm tricking right now. Yeah, see, if I don't bring it down that far, you're not even gonna see. But at the same time, I'm not gonna see, which is what's important. So that works. I'm gonna erase this. I may turn the actual laptop a little bit just because sometimes I need to adjust the different way that I'm actually coming in at the piece. So if that happens, at least I'm letting you know why. Okay, let's get a start on this and we'll get into today's topic. Today's is a good topic. Today's a personal topic. Today's a topic that I hope I will even get out of me. I think that I've done a lot of thinking about it this last week as I've finished the last piece. It's the tricky part of this. Let's see. I'm just gonna start again with it. Do a longer line. No, losing a bit of that detail. Let's go the other way. Circle around. This is the big reason I love drawing with pens. You really can't go back over an area that you've done. You kind of just have to stick with it. I think what's also bothering me is normally when I draw outlines, I'm doing the same color, so if I have to go back over, you really can't tell that my lines are not as like crooked or whatnot. But if it gets that bad, maybe I will add onto it a different, or I will just use a different type of pen. That works. We'll see how it comes out. No matter what, I've got to drop a little bit of that self-criticism that's in there. So back to the topic. Been thinking about it this last week or so. Talking to a couple of friends about it. I think a lot of my hesitation with this goes to a lot of the issues regarding my time in college. But I want to move to a place where I don't think I was ever resentful, but I have I think the best way I can put it is, and it's not to blame anyone. I've made the decisions that I've made, and some of them are also self-induced, but there's just a lot of trauma that I have, and so a lot of that kind of muddles a lot of the other experiences that I've had with regards to being trans. So that's the topic for today's episode. Spit it out, why don't you? My goodness. Yeah, so that's the topic for today. I'm going to talk about me coming out as trans, my trans sense of self, or my sense of self as a transgender person. What words do I use? What's my point of view? And I only say what's my point of view because I think I've expressed in my first episode that I did study gender and sexuality in school, so I don't think I'm what's the word, an authority figure on this matter. I think a lot of us now have to study this type of stuff in school, but taking my own personal experience along with, excuse me, I'm really gassy today. It's not very ladylike. Matters. I'm not an authority figure, but I do have my own personal experiences, which I think gives me a different type of insight. I know when I was in class, it gave me a different type of insight. But I also was very active in the LGBT community where I was at school. So I definitely learned a lot of different experiences. I've been in a couple of different places of leadership within that setting. And so, as much as I may struggle situating myself online with my own point of view, because I don't really do that in general, not even through comments, nothing like that. I tried to at times, but I gotta be really honest, I'm not very social media savvy. I'm not really a part of the main cultures. Getting a phone call, which is taking away my white noise. Is anyone else getting a whole bunch of telemarketer calls? That's the worst. I'm sure everyone does. Anyway, yeah, so I'm not very social media savvy. I try to stay off. I've deleted Instagram. I really only use it to make posts and updates about my my channel, which I should just add. Actually, you know what? I'll find a way to add it into the video once I'm done. Links to my Instagram below. I might as well put that out there. I'm questioning if I want to delete some of my own cringy, youthful posts, but no, I'm just gonna accept the cringe. Been telling myself that for years, so I'm just gonna accept it. I am mean, I'll just let that be. So, yeah, there's a bit of difficulty in wanting to situate how I want to begin to express myself with regards to this. And some of that may even just being discussing it right in the open so I can, what's the word? Exercise my demons, exercise the past, exercise some of those issues. And maybe, I think I said that within my first episode. The whole hope for this would be, or this show would be kind of an outlet, as well as a place to really begin, building a fan base, building an audience for my artwork, giving me a sense of, giving me something to really work on. Because I've made a lot of pieces and I had plans for them, but I think there's something different to, to actually putting yourself on the stage, which I've done before, but now just getting back on the stage and saying, you know what, I need to begin moving along. I hope I'm not drawing too quick, by the way. As you can see, I'm just going lightning through this. I very much enjoy more telemarketers. I very much enjoy drawing on here. I had an issue with it, but I think my issue with drawing on the computer, on the tablets, it's just that I feel it's harder to get out original thoughts. Sometimes when I first start with a piece, I'll just start drawing curvy lines and nothing really comes out or speaks to me. I was drawing something cool a couple of days ago. That was pretty dope. It'd be cool to open it up, but I don't want to risk maybe showing some of my other work before I decide to actually publish it. Taking myself too seriously, but it's okay. Anyway, so yeah, that's a lot of, I think what comes to mind when I get very self-conscious of the matter. I think it wouldn't be, too nuts to say that a lot of it has to do too with the political climate of things. I think right now, where we're at with 2021 in this new year, or at least just how I'm seeing things, since everything's more on COVID. I know there's still stuff online that's related to trans stuff, but it just feels like there's definitely a simmering of the topic. I'm no longer hearing about it as much, so there's that, which is good. It just felt like the zeitgeist was completely focused on transgender, the topic of being transgender, for a good 6 years there, and it was really difficult, especially when I was at school for part of that time. And yeah, so let's start from the beginning. I think I'm just kind of rambling at this point, but I'm sure that a lot of my thoughts are getting out there, and a lot of basically I don't know if I'd call them fears. I know I shouldn't be coming from a place of fear, but I think this is my attempt to kind of dig myself out of that, any bits of self-pity that I've been in any time between now and when I've distanced myself from those experiences, I should say. I like how this is coming out. Got a good outline going. As you can see, some of these other areas right here is really where you can start seeing my the lines I like to go for. Okay. Actually, before I forget, I'm gonna lock this layer. Make sure that all these lines are not simply drawn on the background. Sometimes that happens and it's frustrating. Nope. We have them all on our drawing layer, which is good. So before I get into it, I'm gonna get some water. Get some water real quick. Have you had water today? You should drink some water. One of my lovely friends once said that water is like lotions for your insides. And it's very true. Let me get this back in frame. I'm just gonna start approaching these teeth. So, I think the first thoughts, or I would maybe even just say the beginning of my understanding of myself as being transgender, really started somewhere around 15, 16. I do believe that the thought or that the inclination, I don't know if that would be the word, the emotional state of feeling dysphoria, which I know nowadays it would be better to give kind of a terminology thing, or at least the way I see these terms. Dysphoria, let's start with transgender. Transgender is an umbrella-like term. It kind of describes people who can be any sense of gender variant in terms of like cross-dressing to one degree. Maybe it's one all the way to the far end, maybe, and this doesn't even have to be a far end. It's like an umbrella, so it's a circle. It's a circle. Love is not like a triangle. It's like a circle that keeps going. Anyone who's seen Chuck and Larry, my love. Anyway, so it's like a circle. So anywhere within that circle, some of it can be cross-dressing, some of it can be being what used to be referred to as a transsexual. I think that word also relates to maybe transgender nowadays, but transsexual for some people also just relates to going forward with a complete sex reassignment surgery. There's also third genders that are in there, non-binary, genderqueer. Those are part of the umbrella. So if you're in there, you could be transgender. For me, I'm a transgender woman, so that's under there too. If we're using the words of this community, binary would be in there too, and to say that a trans woman and a trans man would be considered like binary gender transitions. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It matters if it's your experience, but I only say that to say, like, you know, if we're talking trans men and trans women here, at the end of the day, you know, describe what best fits for you, and that's good. That's great. For me, trans woman fits. I don't necessarily refer to myself as being... What I mean to say is, like, I'm not referring to myself as, like, a binary transgender person. I really only use the term trans woman. And that's the term that I use for myself. It's the best that fits, the one that I like, and it fits most within how I describe my experiences. I think I'll get into it in a moment to talk about this idea of trans women are women. I will get into that. It's important to my story, and that's the only reason I will bring it up. I think that this would be the place to make that distinction, but I am going to hold it off for a moment because I want to start from when I first came out. And along with that comes these distinctions of terminology. So anyway, now I want that line to be open. Are we in line? Are we in focus? My apologies if I should probably give what's the word? Trigger warning, a disclaimer at the beginning. This art piece is going to be constantly rotating, so my apologies if that messes you up at all. Maybe I can try to keep it still. I don't like that, but I can try just so that I do not rotate it as much. So, yeah, the first thoughts or any moments of thinking that I was trans came when I was about 15, 16. And as I've said, there is a sense of feeling what's referred to as dysphoria at an earlier age. Dysphoria is a term that describes it's like emotional, physical, mental, unwelling, is that a word? A sense of distress could be another way of describing it. I don't think I've ever felt excessive distress, but there's a sense of something being off with regards to your gender, either it be, or my gender, I should say, speaking from I statements. Remember that was the second episode. But it's a sense of that, and is distinguished within the health guidelines. So yeah, I believe that I had a feeling of that as a youth, but the way have come to understand it is that it was something that was latent, something that I maybe did not recognize, and in fact probably came out in different ways that may have been unhealthy. Of course, there are other things that I was dealing with as a kid, but this is just one of the many things that was there. I remember at very early ages having a sense of wanting to be just like my sisters, having a sense of knowing that I was different, being forced into situations. Not forced into situations, obviously. I mean, you're a kid. No one knows that you're necessarily not going to like things like baseball or crap like that. But, and I know that for a lot of my family, too, that they could see that there was something about me that was different. That, maybe I was gay. Maybe I was a little fruity. Whatever it might have been at the time, that feeling was something, as I said, was latent because I quickly caught on to trying not to be that, whatever it was. And I think a lot of it had to do with how I was expressing my emotions and how I wanted to be in my life. I have very early memories of wanting to put on makeup, wanting to live my life in that way. Along with those memories came a state of trauma. I shouldn't say just trauma of being told it was wrong, but an actual situation, maybe I'll talk about someday, where I wanted to put on makeup, did something completely differently because I knew as a kid it wasn't right, and I ended up hurting myself, like physically, as a young kid, and that stuck with me. And I think that what's really important that I've come to understand within the last few years is that it is one of the things that has really given me such repression as a youth when it comes to the way I felt about myself and the way that I wanted to live my life. I think that's an arcing theme that I want to focus on as I talk about this, is that at the end of the day, this is the way I want to live my life. That's been there. That's been something that's established for me, and I think it's the best way that really distinguishes between the choices I can make and have made, and something along the lines of, I don't know, I like to think about big thoughts, so the question becomes is this real? I read some of Deborah So's work, and she does go into the fact that some people do get treated for gender dysphoria, and their gender transition genuinely helps them. So, mind you, see, these are the type of opinions I have a fear of sharing. I listen to Deborah So. I like her point of view. I like some of her thoughts. Not everything. I'm not her. I'm right in her house. But I like to have a thorough viewpoint of everything. A lot of it has to do with, and I bring this all up because it has a lot to do with my journey. Call it me following fads, but I was big in following the atheist fad, which didn't really come from just simply not believing in God at the time. It's a big topic there. Someday we'll talk about spirituality. A lot of it was through music, actually, and I have something, because this was the hope for the next episode on my favorite albums. My favorite albums. Let me take it out of this, just in case the light. I realize I've had the light on this whole time, and I did not want that. Hopefully that'll fix the image. I'm sorry if that has ruined it all. One of my favorite albums to share. I'll talk about this one in more depth sometime. It's not one of my top 5, but it's number 6 or 7. Bad Religion, Stranger Than Fiction. Oh my goodness, I love this album. This album was my first punk album. And if you don't know Bad Religion, they have the little cross burster, which is the circle with the cross, and it X'd out or whatever. I love this band. This band has really shaped the way that I see life. I think I brought up Bad Religion in my first video, but it's okay. They have, as a band, Greg Graffin, the whole band has really shaped my point of view on a lot of things, and that's really what brought me into the whole point of an atheistic point of view. Even though Greg Graffin kind of distinguishes that there's, you know, I don't know, I think he doesn't jump too much into like the atheist community. He's not like a Charles Darwin, which I think is the biggest reason I never went truly down that rabbit hole. I went down it pretty far, but not to call it like a crazy rabbit hole. I think there's some important lessons to be learned that I learned through there, and I still kind of keep in mind. But that is the reason a lot of that skeptical, critical thinking is a lot of what draws me to figures like Deborah Soh. She's an actual sex researcher, not just simply sex or gender and sexuality theory, but she's an actual biologist, and that's important to the conversation. Very important. And it's my background in trying to be critical in this way, at least in terms of, I shouldn't say critical, I should say more of like, you know, I've had a materialistic point of view for such a long time, and so I think finding work like hers definitely has influenced, my past has influenced following work like hers. And yeah. So anyway, that was a big tangent. I'm trying to remember where I was in the kind of main story of the thing. So yeah, there are plenty of different little experiences I've had as a youth that really had me thinking as the time went on, like, whoa, there's something going on here. But it didn't really latch out to me and say, like, let's say, hey, wake up. Until, believe it or not, it was actually on a New Year's Day. I was not doing much on New Year's. I was actually just on a Skype with friends. My family decided not to do anything that night. They were all asleep. I stayed up. I'm big on video games, so I was just playing video games with them. At some point, we're just kind of chilling, and we start sharing stuff with each other online, and something comes up of a site called Omegle. And if you've ever heard of Omegle, you know where I'm going with this. And if you don't, it's like a chat room. It's a place where you can talk to a bunch of random people all over the world. I spent a lot of time on Omegle after that, I can tell you that. But something that was really interesting and really popped up for Omegle is it kind of was like my door to really allow some of that leak through of a lot of the feelings and emotions that I had regarding my own personal gender and the way that I would soon learn that how I wanted to live my life and what would make me most comfortable. I was on Omegle that night, and I started to just, out of a joke, my friends, it came up of pretending to be a girl on there. And I think this is like a common theme, and I shouldn't, I think in the past I shouldn't go into that. It's something personal. But what I'm trying to say though is that I think this is a common theme for a lot of trans people, that it starts off like a joke and then slowly turns into, wait, I've got actual feelings about this. There's something going on. At the same time, I was in school and I had a classmate draw me as a girl, and it impacted me in ways that I had never obviously expected. And so the combination of these two things, along with, continuing to pretend to be a girl online, it started to really impact, like, my point of view, It started to impact, like, it just brought a lot of questions and doubt into my mind about who I was and how I felt about myself. And it brought to light something that I wouldn't understand until later, is that I began to realize there was ways that I had been coping with it, and that I soon would learn that it was just something I was thinking about just constantly. It became very present in my day-to-day. With time, I decided to reach out. I came out to my family, at least letting them know that this was on my mind. The way that I've handled my gender transition, and where I'd recommend a lot of people that haven't had it continuously on their mind as a youth, I think that is a portion of us. And there's a group of trans people, let's speak of trans women, there's a group of trans women who right at an early age, they're just very aware that there's something off, something should have been a different way, and for them there's a continuous line of feeling that maybe I'm sticking with my words because I don't want to stick for anyone else's experience, but they might be transgender, that they might, maybe it's not in those terms, that they're a boy but they want to be a girl, as I felt as a teenager. And there's a group of us that I can say that's me. I felt that I did not feel these things as a young kid, and didn't feel until I was a teenager. Now, if you follow Deborah So, there's talks about this right now. I know she distinguishes it as being something that's very apparent for the trans masculine community. But again, I am not trying to invalidate anyone's experience. I am just trying to distinguish it for myself because that's how I navigate my life. The distinction here is maybe that it is a rapid onset type situation that comes from fad-like situations, trending type situations, and in addition to that it's a matter of social change. Maybe wanting to fit in, wanting to come off as cool or something like that. For me, I think the way I came out was definitely in that lines. The experience and the sense of self wasn't in that frame, but the way I did it, the way I came out, and the way that I wanted to transition at an early age was, how can I say, one of my first times I went to therapy was, particularly to get hormones. This was maybe like second, third step for me. This is probably like third step if I wanted to number them. I had a psychologist stop me and say like, hey, maybe we should continue to have sessions and go from there. And I know when I was young, I was taken aback by this. Excuse me, I'm cough right now. Burp. Very gassy today, my goodness. Excuse me. And I agree. At the time, I was as I said, I was taken aback. Looking back on it, I agree. I had a lot of other issues in addition to this gendered type situation that was going on with myself personally. And this is maybe a moment to say something. I haven't said it in a long time. I think it's because I've been away from college, but it's something I tell to a lot of trans people, or that at least I've said, and something that I want to relate here from what I've learned from personal experience. Transitioning now for maybe 5 to 6 years, 6 years now. What I like to say is that, transition if it's right for you. What I'm saying right now is not to distinguish anyone or to tell you not to transition. What I'm to do this thing where I try to say what I want to say along with saying a negative. It doesn't come out as clear. I'll work on that. The thing I say is that coming out and transitioning will not fix every problem. I think that's far more apparent now in the dialogue for a lot of people, but it's important to say. It will not fix your other mental health issues. The work that you have to put in for your mental health is not going to be entirely fixed by coming out as transgender. transitioning and taking hormones if that's what you'd like, surgeries and such if that's what you'd like. That'll definitely help ease a lot of feelings that you're struggling with, but if there's something in addition going on, or something even else going on, it will not solve these problems. I know for me it's definitely the case. I was talking about irritability the other day. It can, like I said, it can help, but it will not make things 100% better. Part of me is thinking maybe I should not worry about these details just yet. So I think I'm going to do that. Let's erase these lines. I'm going to leave those right there. A little bit of those up there. Let's try to get the outline though. Let's start with some of these squigglies. The squigglies. So, the first step for me was coming out and looking for help from my family. I was just really honest right from the get-go. And to share, things were really tough at the beginning. There were a lot of interesting changes in that as time went on. The first thing, though, was to seek help. I wanted to come to an understanding of things. One of those things that I did, and what I believe is my first step to really transitioning, but also just even seeking help. You know, as I said, I like to go through steps. I don't like to do anything out of just being abrupt. I've always wanted to take my step with things, because what if I'm wrong? That was something that was very real when I was young. It's still fairly real. I always have that in mind. I understand that we're bound to change our point of view on things. I'm never what's the word, deluding myself by thinking that that'll ever be the case. So far, it seems to be that this is not going anywhere. It's calmed down, which is good, but it's only because I've gone through hormonal transition. But anyway, that first step was really going to the LGBT Resource Center out here in Los Angeles and getting assistance with just counseling and getting an understanding and being able to get my thoughts out, particularly to someone who is supportive. I definitely had some experiences where I tried to reach out at school, and the immediate conversation became something along the lines of, well, it's okay to be gay. You can be gay if you want to be gay, but why do you have to go down this route? And, looking back on it, and I think even then, I'd like to hope then, I think I was more rebellious back then than I am now. Still have some rebellion issues with authority, but back then it was far more, what's the word? I need this line to not go the way it is. So we're going to draw that right there. You can check out this little trick. So I'm draw this line. In my erasers, there's this tool for, so these lines are here. The way I'm drawing them, it's not, okay, let's explain something real quick. So Clip Studio, which is what I'm using right now, it's like Photoshop, but a little different. It works with these little squares. These little squares are what we call pixels, or another word for them is rasters. But pixels, okay? When you're drawing, you're making little pixel drawings, lines. There's two different types. Just basic pixels that change the color. There's other ones that are actually called vectors. And these vectors, how do I explain? I'm thinking about that because I actually really don't know how to explain vectors. I can explain a raster, a pixel, pretty easily. But a vector, I'm going to click on this vector so you can see it. It's actually like, it has this outline. You can't really see it with the black. It's like a red line right here with all these little green dots. And what you can do with that is you can change the what would be the word? The shape of that line. So I'm going to pull this one all the way up. So if I wanted to do something like that, I could. So all these little dots make this line, creates a vector. The vector being kind of like the direction of the line. So my eraser has a couple of different tools for that. There is a tool, an option for just erasing part of the vector. So I'm going to make my eraser a little bigger. You can see this. Let me zoom in. So there's erasing a part. As you can see, it changed the entire shape of the vector, but it barely has the same shape. So that's the first option. The second option, which is what I'm going to use right now, is to erase only part of it. So let's say it's going to be this part, or not, let's not do that. Let's do this part right here. The way that this second option works is that it's going to erase up to where the line interacts with another vector, which would be right here. So if I erase right here, not only will it erase this part right here, like it did the last time with the one over here, but it'll also erase all of this just by touching this part. See? So it erased it where it touched this line. The final one is just completely erasing the vector. So I draw this line so that I can erase this part, because I don't want to erase this whole line. What I want to do is I want to erase just this part, because I don't want it to be, I want it to kind of make some sense with this line down here. If you can see, let me back up. At some point this will save, which is cool. So I want it to kind of make more sense in connecting to this line. So what I'm gonna do is just erase that part. There, it's gone. And now what I can do is I can erase this full line because I don't need it anymore. Perfect. So I'm gonna do too thick. That should be fine. It works. It's not perfect, but it's fine. I'm gonna actually, I need this line to match a little bit more. That works. Now that I think of it, I don't think that line was connecting to there. I think this line was. That's fine then. It still works. I still didn't want it to go down like that. What I did probably didn't matter. It's cool. Happy to talk about digital design. Okay. So first, getting back to that conversation I had, I can make a distinction right now, and I think that would be the way that a lot of people would talk about this, would be to talk about the distinction between, there's a difference between sex and gender, and what I'm struggling with is my gender, which is true. You know, I just, as I've shared, there was a moment where I heard myself as a youth wanting to do this thing. Now, I could be a gay man and wear lipstick, which would be fine, something along those lines. But I knew that there was something going on too with regards to the way I wanted to be in my life, the way I felt about myself. Now, you know what it is? This one does connect with that one. This one, though, probably connects with this one down below. But that's fine, because whichever way it turns, it's gonna be alright. No, what am I doing? This one connects with this one. Oh my goodness. I am silly. That's okay. Okay, so that would be the distinction. If it's something you've never heard before, there's a distinction between sex and gender, which is pretty true. I don't mean to diminish it by the way I'm talking about it. Let's close that up. And leave it like that. That's good. But close this area. So that was the first step, to get a sense of counseling. So I got my counseling, and it was the thing that I wanted to do. I came to an understanding that, okay, this is how I'm feeling. If it doesn't if it doesn't change, really, there's a chance that I might have this for quite some time. I've had it since I was young, and it's something that's still with me. And so I made the decision to begin socially transitioning and see what that would be like. Socially transitioning for me was just starting to wear women's clothes at school. It started off with like t-shirts, and then I slowly got into wearing more feminine clothing. I never went immediate into wearing dresses. I think my first dress took me about a year, and it wasn't until I was at a social event, which I still remember. I still hold it in my heart. A lot of the friends from high school I don't keep in close communication with, but if I told them that I look back on it with joy, I would be very honest that would be the case. Very appreciative of a lot of that day. Wore a nice blue dress. I still have the picture that I took with one of my friends and one of her friends. Very awesome picture. Very awesome picture. Very awesome day. Excuse me. So, I started to socially transition in school. Luckily, I've never explained this, but in high school I actually wasn't. So I spent 2 years of high school in the high school and area I grew up in. Second high school, I was living somewhere else, and so I was a bit of, I wouldn't say a loner. I had friends. I think for me, I knew I came to a different school particularly for a better education. I wasn't getting that in LA, and so, oh man, it'd be really easy to find me now. Doesn't matter. It's not important. Anyway, I went to a different area for better education, and so that's what I was focused on. You know, could have had a little bit better of a high school experience in terms of socially. I think I really relate to like Booksmart, if you've ever seen that movie. It's a definite place where I definitely relate to a lot. But just as the theme of that movie is, you know, we're all kind of in the same situation there in terms of feeling like both separate and at the same time together. But all to say really that my transition in high school was not very difficult for me. I kind of kept to myself, you know. I grew up on the streets, so not to say like, you know, on the streets, but I grew up near the city and just seeing shit constantly, so it wasn't difficult for me in the area that I was in to kind of just, for me really, it was like, holy shit, I'm in an area that I'm kind of safe to transition, at least socially, and start to wear the things that I wanted to wear, or at least be the way I wanted to be. I had some good advantages there. I had some, I don't want to use the other word, I don't want to use the P word, because, you know, I had my own little difficulties too. I've had my own struggles. But I definitely had some advantages to being safe and to being able to be myself. So, what are we getting right now? It's good, looking good. A lot of tracing. So, grew up in LA, grew up in an area where, you know, really don't talk about being politically correct. Before I left LA, I did have some experiences where I was going to an LGBT type group, but it was really just to support friends. Funny enough to realize, you know, later it was like an introduction to what the next few years of my life would be, which is very interesting. I don't know if I'm able to get this shape. Let me see. I might need to just, no, I want it to be, no, this is gonna be tough. Let me just start from the beginning. So yeah, I did have some bits of, you know, early political correctness, but it was still something that was foreign to me. And I'm only focusing on the political correctness because, I got to college, and my first real plan was to get involved. I hadn't really been involved in extracurricular activities in high school. I was just trying to be a good student. And so in college, I was like, nope, I want to get involved. I wanted to, the way I put it to myself then and the way I put it to myself now is I wanted to learn the right way of, being a part of the community that I now was a part of. And I had a lot of really good experiences. I had a lot of good mentors. I had a lot of good friends. I loved my time in college. Where I struggle with things is just, and again, it's the second I go there that I start to climb up. Because I do think of it as a trauma now, at least in some ways. I think a lot of it had to do with just seeing, I say trauma because that's just the way I validate it to myself, because I climb up every time I want to talk about it. But I think if I take a moment to stop and actually get out what I want to say, I think I've already said it earlier, I'm just kind of rephrasing it. There were a lot of moments of friends turning on each other for just political reasons, political, social, activist type reasons that really created this sense of fear in myself. And I think I've only made it worse by delving into things that were coming from the opposing side, coming more from, I don't even say the right, but anything really that was trying to point out the issues of social justice warriors, if I can use that phrase. Luckily, I never went into anyone that was too far fringe, but I think Joe Rogan would be considered too far fringe, but he's pretty tame. I haven't brought him up, Jordan Peterson, but he was actually the first person that I ever came across. And it wasn't even on Rogan's podcast. It was on Duncan Trussell's, who talks a lot about spiritual shit. Like, I was already going through a lot of my, spiritual type reconsiderations, and then I was listening to, I'm trying to get this line right. I was listening to Duncan Trussell, and he had Jordan Peterson on. And, I remember the moment. I was biking home, and he just had this guy on, and I was like, okay, I didn't think much of, who this guy was. I didn't know who he was. And he starts talking about, identity politics and a lot of the stuff that I was learning in school, and a lot of his critiques on communism and points of view on matters of free speech, and it just, something in me just rang like he's describing everything that I'm going through. I hadn't had anyone describe it to me, hey, these are the thoughts, this is something that's really big in college, and it's gonna become big in in regular mainstream politics, which fortunately it did in a way, and it is, well, at least the tensions are going away. I don't want to fearmonger and say that it's the worst thing ever, but there's definitely some changes that I think haven't been for the best. But for example, I think that's where I've made it worse for myself personally, because now it's I'm following these people who are critiquing the things that I'm studying, the people that I'm talking to, and I'm now having to be at school and complete my classes and still kind of, feel like I want to listen to these things because I think it's really important. At least I'm feeling it's really important because I've seen some of the issues that I see other people getting into. I've now had to come to terms with the way I've acted with people. It was something that I think was healthy and unhealthy at the same time. It's strange. And another thing that was very fascinating for me, and this might be getting into someone else's business, but there was someone in my life, someone who's familial that I had a lot of issues with growing up, and you know, I think it'd be a stretch to call it a cult for me, what I was going through, but you know, the way that dogmatically we were supposed to look at things made it feel like a cult. Genuinely made it feel like a cult. And at the same time that I was going through this struggle at college, this other person in my life who I'm now on better terms with, that, you know, we have more of like a loving relation, which is good, that we both, that at the same time they were going through their own type of cult experience. Again, not to say this is a cult, just trying to say that the way the dogma worked almost operated like a cult. So you can see I'm defensive because I just, you know, you see it, and as someone that wants to just be themselves online and talk, there's just this fear of the cancel culture and shit. I love hearing when people just make fun of it and kind of move on, and I know that that's the way to do it. You just do yourself and fuck it, and that's the plan, that's the goal. That's why I don't edit any of these. I just kind of go for it. I think it's just there's a lot coming off my chest, I think, but I think especially once I actually, well, I don't know if I'll ever get past it. I guess I'm focusing on wanting to make this go away and hoping that by the time I post this that it can, because it's been far too long, and I need to start living my life and not worrying in a sense of fear. But I think I'm conscious enough now to simply actually be able to be critical of both sides, of saying, you know, yes, there's some bad shit, but it's also not like the worst thing in the world, and also shit's kind of been going kind of in this way anyway. And I can say two things on it. So for example, like an interesting idea, I forget who I heard this from. It might have been Thomas Frank, or there's another person that's been on a favorite podcast of mine. Let me see, it might have been, where is it? I don't know if I'd be able to find this name real quick. It might have been, I'm just stalling right now. I'm about to start talking a little politics. Okay, so I don't know who said it. I'm going to paraphrase that when I say this. But it's the saying that... oh, it was Thomas Frank. I think it was Thomas Frank. You know, for example, like, taking something from the, that kind of politically correct left that calls out colonialism, for example. I think it's something that's critiqued by the other side that critiques them. You know, what are you talking about colonialism? Like, we're in like the 21st century, but talking like colonialism, something that like would be a good point of view where we're in the middle, there's a meet, like, you know, the far left would say something along the lines of like, it's great that we have a vice president that's a woman, and it's history's been made. Yeah, history's been made, and you know, I know it'd be quick to be, I wouldn't be alone to be the first one to say I don't like Kamala Harris, but it'd be another thing to say that her rise and being selected to this place of power is a type of colonialism. But why is that? She's a woman. She's a woman of color. Well, it's a type of colonialism because in third world countries, particularly African countries, when you have regime change, the way that our country has always taken over other countries would be, okay, take over the country, put someone in power. Well, of course, you know, they try and they put a white guy in power. I'm not trying to move from identity politics, I'm just describing. So, you put a white guy in power. Well, the natives aren't going to be happy about that. Obviously, why the hell is this guy telling us what to do? So, they fight back or whatever. Okay, well, that didn't work, so why don't we put an inside native into power? So, you know, if the native group, let's just say if if most of the boys as kids were named Gary, let's put in a Gary. Not to use any racial name or anything like that. It's just Gary. Well, are we really being taken over? Because now Gary's in power, and Gary's one of our people. So, not knowing maybe that Gary's being paid out by a government, by the colonizing government. Well, it's very much the same thing with Kamala Harris. It's like we have this situation now where the person who's in power, although they have the identity, although they are making history, they are bought out by the dominating force, which in our case would be like companies and corporations and the establishment. Anyway, all that to say, like, you know, I'm still trying to situate myself politically, and particularly, like, you know, what I do with this channel, with this show, with my points of view. I'm wanting to be someone that does my artwork, but at the same time shares who I am, because that's the best way, I think, to be honest. And, you know, again, to talk for myself, this is what I wanted to do. I've always been that person in the group of friends who talked about their opinion, so it's where I'm at, it's what I'm going to be. So let's go back to trans stuff. Talking to trans stuff. We only got about 27% of my battery, so I might have to stop at some point. I think I've gotten out most of the political stuff that I wanted to say, so that's good. I can focus on my trans-related stuff, which is good. I'm going to need a line for that. Anyway, so that was the first step, to get counseling. Second step was socially transitioning, which went well, and it felt right. A lot of joy came from that. A lot of sense of self-acceptance. Third step was getting hormones. I said that I would come back to this because it was important to my journey. It was this distinction between women, or trans women, or women. And this probably will get me a lot of flack, so I should just say, like, first off, I don't care. Second off, I'm talking about my own experience and what I've gone through. I was told very early on about this idea. If you don't understand it, or know of it, it's just basically that if a person transitions to be a woman, or if you transition to be a man, then that's what you are. Again, if that's what you believe, it's cool. It's fine. I'm not going to argue with you. I don't mean to. But what I have experienced personally is that it only gave me more distress. As someone who was studying the history of the LGBT movement and trying to give a fair representation, understanding, what's the word I'm looking for? A fair study and respect to other communities, I constantly ran into this issue that I'm really not, you know, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with being a transgender woman, not being a biological woman. And I know for a lot of people, it's kind of hard to hear that. I know even in my personal relationships, sharing that isn't very easy. I know it comes with a lot of hurt in one place, because it's something you can internalize. But at the other flip side, I think it almost feels like I'm invalidating myself. And I mean, I think it becomes more invalidating if I ever include myself in the group of men, because it's not what I am either. You know, I am my sex is male if we're talking about the nitty gritty. Okay, I realize I haven't had any word bang today. No word bang today. Sorry. I've gone so far into it and I'm on a roll, so I'm just gonna keep going. So one of the people that I follow that I really dig, that is one of the trans channels that I followed, people, whatever, that I followed when I was in this area of my life of trying to situate myself politically and post-school, is a transgender girl by the name of Blair White. I like her stuff. I like her work. like her points of view. I've used one of her points of view here on a couple of my episodes. The view of like, I'm a tranny from LA. Like, what do I know about it? If I'm talking to you about politics, you take my points of view with a grain of salt. Sure, I read shit, but come on. At the end of the day, I mean, I'm really just bullshitting. Anyway, shit, I'm losing my train of thought. She had a point of view on something that I related to. Oh, she had something along the lines of like, look, I'm not going to identify as a male if we're like out in public, because obviously, especially for her, she genuinely passes. Well, I'm not going to tell you that I'm a man, you know. That'd be pretty, it would just be out there. It wouldn't be cool. Or there's another way to say that. It wouldn't be, whatever. I guess it doesn't matter any distinction there, but I think the point has gone across. I guess this is where I'm struggling, is because I'm speaking for her, but at the end of the day, this is a point of view that I share. Like, I'm not going to identify as a man within certain situations, and when I do that, because I complicate it for myself, it of course kind of invalidates me, and I've felt that before, so I know the distinction here is not simply, well, my male is sex, but another thing is to say, no, I'm a trans woman, and that's what best describes me. And it really does. It really does. And I may not subscribe to the idea that trans women are, well, I'm only going to say this for myself. I don't think I even have again, I'm not an authority on this, so I'm just kind of, I'm expressing what has worked for me, because when I've tried to work from that framework, that point of view, it's only given me more distress. I notice it when I'm getting a phone call again, yes. I can tell it when the white noise cuts out. I could tell it when I'm in lesbian bars. There's a sense of that feeling. And maybe it's can be blamed on pushback and other types of politics, but at the end of the day, it's just personally, from what I come to understand about sex, gender, and the history of different sexualities, I'd rather think of myself within the framework of how I live my life as a transgender woman. So keep it at that. You can hear it. You can hear how I start to second guess my thoughts, points of view when I get on something that's touchy. Might be something that's continuously with me. I hope not. Again, I didn't realize this until while I was talking about that. My apologies for changing the orientation of the screen. I hope it doesn't give anyone any extreme headaches. Maybe it's best to just listen to this episode and not watch. I don't know if that would be good at all. I'm coming close to the end. I'm at an hour and a half, but I also need to slowly get into a place where I can start getting ready for work. So I transitioned on hormones. I've been doing it now for about, well, and I think I brought this up in another episode, I've been doing it for about 6 to 5 years. But for a long time, I wasn't on the right hormonal dosage. Finally, I'm on a better hormonal dosage. It's working out better for me. I have a better doctor. Things are looking up. I've been on a better regimen for a few months now. If I was being honest about those months, it'd be, let's see, June, July, August, September. Wait. Brina doesn't know her months. Well, let's start. Okay, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January. Same is 8. No, 7. I can't do math either. My goodness. Sorry. I'm just on the spot. That's all. 7 months. But if we're really talking about how long I've been on the actual, like, ranges, it'd be like... like 5 months. And it's been good. It's been definitely good. It actually feels like well, obviously physically I was, so at first the feeling, I think, when I made the first episode was like, it feels like I'm transitioning again. I can tell you I'm transitioning again. It's a trip. My body's been going back into that place, and I had a lot of different developments in the last few months, and it's still going, which is great. Gonna be seeing a doctor in another few months just to check up. From there, I'm hoping to adjust the regimen again and do some new stuff. I'd like to switch to a different type of a method and all that, but that's for another time to talk about, if that's something that's even desired to know. Anyway, though, yeah, I'm at a place now where I definitely am more comfortable about my gender dysphoria. It's not as distressing. It's never been, panic-inducing, but there has been moments that have been difficult. Someday I'd really like to have like a streamed type event where I can maybe even like take questions live. That'd be pretty cool. I used to do that a lot in school, at least not streaming, but I used to do what were called panels. I said I was very involved in school, so all those things. Anyway, though, something I glossed over. I don't think I really mentioned. This is a cool tool. Lets me create an arcing line like this, because I just want a fairly consistent curve. About there is good. What I can do is use that erasing tool to take away these little bits. Nope. wrong option, wrong setting. So there you go, you see how it kind of just creates that. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3. Cool. And then I just need to draw those and I can situate it. Something I glossed over. I'm sure some would be interested in knowing. I don't think I need to go too in depth about it, but the way my family took it, I had a lot of family that was very accepting. Or I have continued to have family that's accepting, and I mean to say that in the sense that, like, there's a lot of my family that knows, and the family that I've never really told, there is kind of like this sense of knowing, but it just hasn't gone said. No one really asks me, so we just kind of don't talk about it. I'm sure that'll change in the future, but for the family that does know, for the most part, or has come to know, it's generally been accepting, which is good. Parents, a lot of it has been a matter of change, and I think this is something important to share. For anyone who maybe is choosing to come out or planning on coming out, I know this is said often, but time really is a thing that's time is what's most important. Like, time heals. It's a lot of family is gonna go through the way I love the way it's put is when you come out and when you start to transition, or when you come out particularly to yourself, you go through kind of like a grieving process of believing that you're losing a sense of yourself, and then realizing that you're not really losing a sense of yourself, but it's a process. It's almost like you're grieving. Well, for your parents and or for family who may even take it difficultly, unless they're completely not accepting of you, and that's another thing, often they also have to go through a grieving process. And the saying goes, everyone grieves differently. It may take some more time. And often if family sticks around, the hope is that, they can express, or they can come around to accepting you. But I guess I'm like situating with this. The reality of my situation is that my parents are both accepting, they're understanding the situation, they're loving, but the hill for me that went from difficulty, tension, and awkwardness was that a lot of that was a reflection of their worry, fear, and care and concern and worry for my safety, for my parents. That was the main thing. There was another thing but that was the main. And I definitely have been fortunate there with my parents. And yeah. So it takes time. And I say that because my parents started off not accepting, not happy about it, struggling with it. And with time, grew to kind of push it aside, realize, just mainly focus on wanting me to be happy and moving on with it, which is good. And I'd hope that for everyone with time. So, it's been today's episode. I think I'm about done to call it. I think beyond just this being the transgender episode, this is also just an episode for me to get out a lot of what I've been feeling with regards to that whole political thing that I just delved into. It's distressing. It's maybe not distressing is a better word. The word I've been using this whole time has been that it had some trauma to it, and I'm hoping I can move on, because I feel like I'm at a place where I'm ready to do that, and I'm ready to begin with just being myself again, because for a while there it wasn't readily available. And the way I look at that, as I've expressed in my second episode, was I think a lot of it just had to do with my awareness to situations. So I got most of the skull. I haven't decided if I wanted to keep working on this outside of the videos, and maybe just maybe next episode we're all the way down here, just because I know this will take a lot of time. But I hope it's been enjoyable. I hope this has been an enlightening episode. In truth, in this moment, I just really hope that it helps me get past a lot of the things that I've had on my mind and that have bothered me for some time now. Hopefully this will be like kind of a what's the word? A confessional type situation where I could just get it off my chest and move along. Yeah. We're at about an hour and 30 minutes. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. Yeah, this is my background. Oh, that's because the camera went out. Things happen. Any Alien fans? Stop the recording as is. Oh, the microphone stopped recording. Oh no. That's not good. This is not gonna be good. Oh my goodness. Oh no. Alright, so again, just like episode 2, we're not gonna have a good audio quality. Sounds like I only recorded like 8 minutes. So I hope that it comes out okay. Thank you for watching. Let's see how this see how it goes. With that, I give you a goodbye. I don't know what more to say. I'm still situating myself with a lot of these feelings, I guess. But yeah, that's the episode. That is the show for today. Goodbye. Goodbye. Thank you for listening. I hope the sound quality is not as bad as I'm expecting it's going to be. Goodbye.